conversations. But we're going to go ahead and get moving with our program. Good morning, everyone. Our keynote speaker for the Communication Summit is president and owner of Action Research, a firm that specializes in changing behavior for the public good by applying marketing and social science research to outreach programs that promote clean, healthy, and safety communities, sustainable communities. She has a Master's of Arts degree in experimental psychology from California State University, San Marcos, and more than 16 years of experience developing behavior change programs for public and private agencies, including the City and County of San Diego. This morning, she will discuss community-based social marketing as a tool for influencing behavior change. Please welcome to the stage our Communications Summit keynote speaker, Jennifer Tabanico.
Thank you for the introduction. Good morning. Again, my name is Jennifer Tabanico from Action Research. And not to sound cliche, but I am really excited to be here. When I finished my master's degree at Cal State San Marcos in psychology, I worked on campus on state and federal grant programs for a while, and then saw this opportunity in the real world to help agencies on the ground that are working in their communities to change behavior. And one of the first projects that I worked on was with the City of San Diego's Think Blue program, working on stormwater pollution prevention. And there's several people in this room that I know from that initial work. Since that time, I've been able to work on programs all across the U.S., in North America, Canada, Mexico, and even internationally in Australia and New Zealand. But it's always the projects in San Diego that I get the most excited about, and because of making a difference sort of in my local community. So those are the ones that always keep me going. And to be in a room surrounded by people who have that same goal is really exciting. So thank you so much for having me. Also, as you'll see, the mission of my company, Action Research, is very closely tied to what Live Well San Diego is doing. So since the beginning of almost 20 years now, at Action Research, we've been applying marketing and social science research to produce outreach programs that promote safe, healthy, and sustainable communities. And that covers a wide range of topics, and I show you this here not to just promote my portfolio, but what I want you to remember is that the concepts that I'm going to talk to you about today are applicable across a wide range of behaviors. So at Action Research, we worked on everything from waste and recycling, transportation, pollution prevention, sustainable agriculture, conservation of different species, wide ranges of topics. And so I really hope that you can get some tools here today that will help you with the specific behavior change challenges you're working on. So let's talk first about why behavior matters. Behavior change is central to a clean, healthy, safe, and thriving community. If you look at just about any social issue, whether it's environment, health, safety, or any of these indicators that you have identified, embedded within those are long lists of actions that people can take. Preparing emergency kits, securing their online information, taking the bus, riding a bike, preparing meals, buying local food. You could go on and on and on, and there's so many different behavior changes that are tied to those outcomes that we're trying to achieve. So behavior matters at the end of the day. And we can address some of these social challenges in other ways. So we have new technologies and infrastructure. So we develop electric vehicles. We build more bike lanes. But that still depends on behavior. First, it takes time for those things to make their way into the marketplace. But also, people need to buy them. People need to utilize them. Putting in bike lanes doesn't mean people are going to suddenly start riding bikes to work. Putting out new, cool electric vehicles doesn't mean people are going to give up their trucks they've become accustomed to. So behavior is still a piece, even at that level. We can also address some of these challenges with policies and laws. We can create tighter traffic laws that bust people for texting and driving. We can create policies that require restaurants to collect their unused food and donate it to people in need. But There are also things we just can't enforce. We don't want people to flush pharmaceuticals down the toilet, but that's really hard to monitor and catch. We really rely on people engaging in behaviors for a voluntary basis, and that behavior change is what really is going to move those indicators. So as it turns out, not only does behavior matter, but the behavior matters. So even if you just pick one domain, like environment, there's a long list of behaviors that you can engage in, from recycling to alternative transportation, or within health, you've got exercise, diet. So each of those actions have very different barriers associated with it. So even if someone believes that health is important, their reasons for not exercising might be different than their reasons for not planning healthy meals. Or for someone who cares about the environment, they might recycle, but they're not riding their bike to work. So what we find is that the reasons people engage in or don't engage in behaviors vary at the level of individual actions. And so behavior gets a little complex that way. But, fortunately, behavior, though it seems kind of mysterious, there's a few things that we know from psychology and the study of individuals and behavior, both as individuals and in groups. One is that behavior is predictable. Now, behavior isn't always rational, but we can predict the way that people are going to behave in different situations. And knowing that can help us as we figure out how to communicate. Second, behavior is understandable. So drawing from psychology and other studies, we can understand why people act the way they do. What are the underlying motivations that people have, and what are the underlying barriers that they experience? We can understand that. And third, and most encouraging, is that behavior can change. I know it seems hard, and it is. Behavior change is not easy. You don't see that on the list. Behavior change is easy. It's not. But it can change. So if you look at things like seatbelt use, smoking, curbside recycling, those things have changed substantially over time. But not overnight. But we can change behavior. And fortunately, social science can help us with that. And so that's what I'm here to talk to you about. But first, I want to step back from that and talk a little bit about how behavior change has traditionally been approached. And it's largely been through information and awareness campaigns. And these campaigns are everywhere and they're well-intentioned, but they're based on two assumptions. First is a knowledge-based assumption. These are campaigns that work on the assumption that people don't act because they don't know what to do, or they don't know that they should. So we create websites, we hold workshops, fact sheet after fact sheet, brochures, and we educate people with the hope that if they just knew what to do, they would do it. But what we find over and over again in the research is that knowledge by itself is not a motivation to act. You might need to have knowledge to do something, it can be a barrier, but simply having the knowledge does not move people to action. Similarly, kind of another avenue that these larger campaigns or information-intensive campaigns take is more of an awareness-based approach. These campaigns are based on assumption that people don't act because they simply just don't care. So we need to show them pictures of birds with their bellies filled with plastic. We show them emotional images. We try to get them to just care enough. Let's show what can happen to you if you don't quit smoking. But what we find again is that simply having a positive attitude towards something is not sufficient motivation to act. And a lot of times there's not a really strong correlation between people's attitudes and their behaviors. And I think if you kind of think about your own lives and behaviors that you're talking about promoting and the programs that you're promoting, I can guarantee each and every one of us don't exercise as often as we should. We don't always eat as well as we should. We maybe haven't planned for our retirement as well as we should have. Yet we seem to think that if we just tell other people how important it is and tell them how to do it, they're going to do it. Yet very often we're not doing those things ourselves for a variety of reasons. Time, other responsibilities, lack of access. There's so many other reasons that people don't act that go beyond knowledge and awareness. I want to talk to you about two studies where they actually tested this. And first I'll back up and say, I'm not saying knowledge and awareness isn't important. Educating and raising those attitudes is important. what I'm suggesting is it's not the only thing. We need to be doing other things to address the reasons people aren't engaging in actions. So this first example comes from a study by Scott Geller at Virginia Tech. And he wanted to test this idea. Does raising knowledge and awareness translate into behavior change? So what he did was advertise in the paper a workshop that was going to be 3 hours on the weekend, available only to the first 40 people who signed up. And this was a workshop on energy conservation and efficiency that would provide people with the information they needed to make energy efficient improvements in their home that were low or no cost. So again, this is going to be a highly motivated audience that shows up for 3 hours on a weekend based on an ad they saw on the paper available to the first 40 people. So highly motivated audience and a lot of time. How many of you have a lot of time to spend with your target audience? That's very intense for those who have resources. This is sort of like the upper bound of what you could do. So he delivered these workshops and measured attitudes and awareness and knowledge before and after the workshop. And what he found was that people had more positive attitudes about energy conservation after the workshop, and they were more knowledgeable about the things they could do in their home to save energy. So great. If raising knowledge and awareness worked, then we should see behavior change. But what he did to test this was go back to those people who participated in the workshop and said, well, let's see what they did. And I'll show you what he found. One of those 40 highly motivated people lowered the temperature on their hot water heater. That's a very simple one-time action in most cases. Only one person did that. Slightly more encouraging is that 2 of the 40 highly motivated participants who just spent 3 hours learning this put a hot water heater wrap around their hot water heater to kind of attain the energy. Pretty labor-intensive activity, but both of those people had done so prior to coming to the workshop. So they were going to do it anyway. The last finding is the most impressive. 8 out of the 40, that's 20%, installed a low-flow shower head. That's good. That saves water and hot water heating costs, right? But it's less impressive when I tell you that all 40 of those participants were given a low-flow shower head after.
Wow.
So this highly motivated audience can't do these simple actions after spending all that time. There's got to be something else going on besides knowledge and awareness. One more example, this was a campaign that was run in the U.S. by the U.S. government. It was a $1.4 billion anti-drug campaign focused on youth. And the goal was to stop youth from starting and get occasional users to stop, and also focus on parents and getting them to talk to their kids about marijuana use. So this ran from 1994 to 2004 and was evaluated in 2005. And what they found, this was a regular widespread media campaign, that's why it was so expensive. So TV, radio, community programs, no social media wasn't as big at this time, but lots and lots of exposure. And what they found was not only was there no impact on marijuana use, the evidence pointed to the opposite. People who were exposed to the message showed greater intentions of experimenting with marijuana. So again, not only can knowledge and awareness alone, and the reason for that was because the ads were showing, hey, this is a frequent thing that everybody's doing. They were associating it with images and photos of cool-looking youth engaged in good times. And so the ads were actually very counterproductive. And I could go on and on about this all day, but there's many other examples of failed campaigns. Even the 5-a-day campaign, there were significant increases in people's knowledge that they should eat more fruit and vegetable, but the evaluation of that program showed no difference in purchase of fruits and vegetables. So actual behavior didn't change, knowledge has changed. Same with Flex Your Power and other of these large-scale programs. So why? It works for Ford, it works for McDonald's. How come when we try to motivate people with the same tools, it doesn't work? It's because we're asking for really different things. So we're not trying to get people to drink Coke instead of Pepsi, or to eat at McDonald's instead of In-N-Out, or try to drive a Ford instead of a Chevy. We're trying to get people people to not drink soda at all. We're trying to get people to eat salads and fruits and vegetables. We're trying to get people to not drive and to walk or use more active transportation choices. So rather than just shifting someone from something they're already doing to something a little different, we're getting people to try to do something that they haven't done before, or that's more difficult, or more costly, or more time-consuming, or otherwise less desirable than what they're already doing. And that takes a different approach. So that approach that I'm going to talk to you about today is community-based social marketing. So community-based social marketing has kind of become a buzzword, but it's not a new snazzy marketing technique. It's a process that's based in decades of social science research, so it's an evidence-based process. It's also, not surprisingly, community-based, and what I mean by that is the programs that are developed in community-based social marketing are developed based on data gathered from the community and very often delivered by the community members and community organizations themselves. Community-based social marketing is focused on removing the barriers that people face to individual actions. And like I said, that can vary by behavior. The reasons people don't save for their retirement are different than the reasons they don't take measures to protect their identity online. And lastly, it's behavior-based. At the end of the day, we are most focused on did behavior change, rather than how many things did we do. We still count those things. We want to know how many workshops did we attend, how many people did we talk to, but at the end of the day, we really want to know what did people do. So it's a 5-step process. I'm going to introduce it very briefly here, and then walk you through an example, and we'll dive deeper into what these steps look like. So, 5-step process begins with selecting a behavior. I think I've kind of established why that's important because of the variation. We need to be strategic about what behaviors we're selecting. Then, once we've done that set of behaviors, we need to learn what are the barriers that decrease the likelihood that people are going to engage in that behavior, and what are the benefits that they might perceive or realize from engaging in that behavior. We need to understand that first before we can move to this 3rd step, which is develop strategy. Where do most agencies start? Step 3. We have ideas for taglines, we have ideas for what we want to put on our Facebook page, we have ideas for graphics. It's fun to go right there. But without those first 2 steps, it's nearly impossible to know that your strategies are likely to change behavior. Once you've got a good strategy in mind, we then move to pilot test the behavior with a small portion of the target audience to make sure it's effective before moving on to the last step, which is broadly rolling it out across the community and continuing to evaluate it. So I find at this point it's best to walk through an example so you can kind of see what the whole process looks like. And so I picked an example. I know a lot of you are working in health and all different kinds of fields, but I picked an example that we've probably all run into at one point in our lives. And it's from a project I did with the City of Oceanside's Clean Water Program. It was back in 2009, but it's still one of my favorites. And it was focused on the San Luis Rey River Trail, which starts 7 miles inland and runs all the way to the beach. It's a paved trail, primarily intended for biking, but people also use it to walk or jog or walk their dogs. And we were contacted by the city's Clean Water Program because they had issues with bacteria in that water there at the San Luis Rey River and out into the Pacific Ocean. And their belief was that a lot of that bacteria was coming from people leaving pet waste along the trail. And when it rains, the bacteria from that waste washes into the waterways. And plus, it's just a public nuisance, right? So that was the focus of the campaign. But first we wanted to know, is this the right behavior? Are people actually doing this? Or is this just a perception? Because sometimes when we're really interested in things and we care about things, we pay attention to every single instance of that, and we think it's a bigger problem than it is. So we look for evidence to support our beliefs. It's called a confirmation bias. So we really want to go out and collect data to make sure that we actually have an issue. So who was responsible? That's the first question we wanted to answer. Are these people who are living near the trail residents that are coming to the trail and walking their dogs? Or are they visitors and tourists who don't really know the local laws and regulations or care about water quality? Who is it? So we sent a Girl Scout troop out to interview people along the trail. And we found that most of the people who were out there with their dogs were coming from the neighborhoods immediately adjacent to the trail access points. So that told exactly who our target audience was and who we needed to focus on. We then engaged the Girl Scouts to help us identify how big is the problem. So they went out and counted piles of pet waste along the trail to different sides. And indeed, there was a problem. They love doing that kind of stuff. And we love engaging them when we do. So, second, we needed to know, well, why aren't people doing it? When we first started working with the city of Oceanside, everybody was like, people just don't care, they don't know it's the law, they're just lazy. And indeed, if you look at the signs that are not just in the city of Oceanside, but all over the United States that focus on pet waste, this is what you typically see. Pick up after your dog, it's the law, it transmits disease. And so they give you these images too of like, you should really be encouraged to stand in this awkward position with like a plate and pick up after your dog. So don't make it look very pleasant. But they're speaking, and these are the motivations that are important to us, it's the law. But what he wanted to do is find out from the target population, why are they not picking up after their pets? And what we learned was they didn't really care about the law because they didn't believe that it would ever be enforced, and they were probably right. They didn't really care about it being a threat to their children's health. That wasn't a motivator for them. It wasn't something that they saw as valuable. What they did believe is that it was their social responsibility. If someone has a dog, if I have a dog, it is my responsibility to pick up. I'm motivated by that. But there's times when I don't have a bag. And you know what else? The trash cans are really far away. So that's what we heard from the target audience. It wasn't these messages. It was like, I need a bag, I need more trash cans. And maybe point out that other people, that this is my responsibility. So that made it really easy for us to develop a strategy. So the signs were then changed to highlight.
It's your duty.
Do your duty. But we also showed people exactly what we wanted them to do by using a bag, and then we made it look pleasant for them. But importantly, it wasn't just the message. We didn't have to address the actual other barriers that were there by providing bags and more trash cans for people to throw that away. So we measured the impact of this campaign by implementing it on half of the trail and not on other halves. And we sent the Girl Scouts back out again to measure changes in counts of piles. And what we saw was a 23% reduction in piles of pet waste where we implemented that new infrastructure and signage. And we saw no change in those areas where it wasn't to the same levels. Really good indicator for us that, hey, we did work. A follow-up on that, a bit anecdotal, but a couple of years later, I got a call from the city, and they're like, I don't think the message is working anymore. We expanded this out all across the city, we put the signs up, now, and on the rest of the trail also, and now people are picking up, and they're just leaving bags along the trail. And I was like, okay. Well, did you put trash cans too, or did you just put bags? Like, oh, we just put the bags. So again, it's really important to address those underlying barriers. People are willing to pick up, but now you didn't address that issue they had with not having enough trash cans. So we need to move people along through the behaviors, but address the challenges that they're going to face along the way. So that is community-based social marketing. We're going to dive now a little bit further into each of those steps. So first is strategic selection of the behaviors. People have finite amount of attention for how many things we can shove down their throat at one time. Live Well San Diego is one program. There are a lot of other programs out there promoting different things. People are getting a lot of messages. What we find, and the research is a little mixed, I can't give you an exact number, but there's a phenomenon called decision overload, choice overload, decision fatigue. When faced with too many choices, people will do nothing. So intuitively we think, let's give them 100 things they can do and they'll do something. It's actually the opposite. The more choices we give people, the more overwhelmed they get and they either do nothing or they pick the thing that's actually really not that significant, the easy thing. So if you give them 100 things they can do to save energy, they pick turn off the lights before I leave, which is pretty insignificant in terms of energy savings. So we need to be really strategic about which behaviors because we only have a little bit of space. And we try to keep them to like 3 to 5 behaviors to promote at any one time. Secondly, those decisions need to be informed by data for a couple of reasons. We want to make sure that the audiences that we picked are connected to the outcome that we're targeting. We want to make sure that the behavior that we're picking is connected to the audience. If you pick the behavior so say you pick a behavior that's not even ever connected to water quality, then you're never going to see a change in water quality. So making sure those connections are in place are really important. So here's just a couple examples of data you might use. So this is showing injury deaths among seniors, primarily coming from unintentional injuries. Okay, lots of things embedded in there, but then you can break that down and you see that of those unintentional injuries with seniors, most of those are falls. So that points us into which behaviors are most important. All those things you can do in your home to prevent falls, right? Not wearing socks around the house, removing loose rugs, putting in railing. There's a lot of different actions that you can get people engaged in, but looking at that data at first can point you in the right direction. Similar for bike safety. What are the causes of accidents? In this data from Orlando, it suggested it's people riding the wrong way. It's not people on their headphones. It's not people who don't know how to ride a bike. It's they're riding the wrong way on the road. So again, that points you in the right direction of where to focus your messages. And you can use data from all different sources on all different topics. The idea is use evidence to make that initial decision about what behaviors you're going to target. Sometimes you wind up with a pretty long list. Then what do you do? What do you do when you have 100 things that people could do to benefit their health or to eat more nutritiously? So what we do in those cases then is prioritize. And what we look for are behaviors that have a high impact. So what are the health prevention behaviors that are most important? Is it checking blood pressure? Is it getting mammograms? What are the behaviors that have the most impact on a particular outcome? We want those. But we also want that behavior to have a high probability associated with it. So in other words, we want something that people will actually do, that the barriers aren't so great that nobody's ever going to do it. So it's got to be a balance of high impact and high probability. Third, we want to look at penetration. Penetration is how much are people doing this already? We want to pick behaviors where there's some room to move. Sometimes we pick these behaviors that seem catchy and cool, but everyone's already doing it. So it would be like putting a campaign to get people to put in LED light bulbs. Those have all gone away because everybody's already doing that. And so there's no room to move people. There's like the few people that maybe are never going to do it, but do you want to put your resources into pulling those few people along or going with someone where you can move more people? And then the fourth consideration is applicability. To how many people is this behavior actually even relevant? So for example, if you wanted people to put rain barrels to capture water on their homes, that only applies to people who own their homes, have gutters, and can actually physically install them. So looking first at your whole population and whether or not that behavior is relevant to them. That can help kind of narrow down the list. So once we've identified a set of behaviors, and one of the misperceptions about community-based social marketing is that you can only pick one behavior, and that's actually not true. It's just that you need to have a good understanding of the barriers and benefits around each of those behaviors individually. Because like I said, those behaviors aren't really well correlated with one another. Just because someone exercises doesn't mean they eat well. We have to address those things differently. So before we can really develop programs, then we need to understand those barriers and benefits. Why are people not engaging in the behavior? So maybe they don't know, maybe they don't care, but maybe they don't have access. Maybe they have established cultural norms. Maybe they don't have the parental support at home that they need to carry these things out. So these are the things that we need to identify before we can develop effective programs. So I already mentioned that barriers can vary by behavior, but they can also vary by audience. So a more affluent audience might experience different challenges than a less affluent audience. An older audience might experience different challenges than a youth audience. Barriers can vary by season. Someone might be cool riding their bike in the summer, but when it's a rainy season, forget about it. So that varies. And lastly, behavior can vary over time as policies change, as cultures change, as politics change, that those barriers can vary as well. So we really need to be mindful of those things as well. The other thing to consider when we're thinking about barriers is that sometimes what we think about as a behavior is actually a series of sub-actions, each of which has its own barriers associated with it. So take something as simple as riding a bike, right? It's easy to ride a bike. having an intention to, I want to ride my bike, to actually riding their bike has a lot of steps, more than I could fit on this slide. But first, they have to get a bike. So we're promoting riding bikes. Do people even have bikes? If not, then how can we get over that barrier and get people access to bikes? And this is, I think, one of the places where you can leverage these partnerships that you have, is addressing the barriers in these individual steps. Okay, now people have a bike. Does it work? Do they need repairs? How can you leverage partners to help people through that step? Do they know how to ride it? Do they have a route? So you can see as people move along, do they have the physical training or skill to ride their bike? Breaking that down can really help you see not only where the barriers might lie, but also where you might be able to leverage each other to help overcome some of those barriers that people will face. And you can do this for any behavior, and what you'll find is that things we thought were really, really simple are very complex. So in identifying barriers and benefits, no matter how small of an agency or how large of an agency, you can always do some level of audience research. So starting with literature reviews, just looking and seeing what have other people learned about this behavior. Observations, watching people. If you watch people when they go up to try to recycle different things, especially now when we have like food waste recycling programs, you can really see what it is that people struggle with. Like what item do they hold on to? I don't know where to put it. That gives you an indication of the barriers, and it points you in a direction of where your strategies need to be. Or if people are showing up to bike shares and there's no bikes left, that kind of gives you an indication of where you need to focus. Focus groups are bringing people together to gather deep information about a particular issue. You can do quantitative surveys from big citywide surveys, like I know the city of San Diego used to do a lot of those, to just staging somewhere in an event and asking people two simple questions. What makes it difficult for you to do this? What would make it easier for you to do this? Or what would you see as beneficial or rewarding about doing this? So gathering something, getting some kind of audience research is critical because we are different than our target audience. Just by virtue of the fact that we're working on programs in a particular area, we're more knowledgeable, we care more, and things that we experience as challenges are different than what our target audience is often experiencing. And so getting out of the office and talking to people really can help improve your programs and your communications. Because we simply are just developing things in a boardroom and then pushing them out because we think they would work for us, but they very often won't. So only then, when you have that audience information, can you move on to the third step, which is developing your strategies. And we take two things into consideration there. One are the outcomes of your barrier and benefit research, and second, we draw from tools from the social sciences. And there's a number of established tools that you can use, and I'm going to introduce a few of them to you today that are the most powerful or the most common. So first, when it comes to developing strategy, we don't just sit in a boardroom and come up with ideas for a message. We think strategically about, first and foremost, how do we enhance motivation? So that is actually the most important. When it comes to barriers and motivations, motivation is key because if you have no movement forward, the barriers don't matter because you're never going to hit them because you're not even moving. So we have to hit that motivation side. That's where a lot of the mass media and branding and messages and PSAs and social media can really help you with that piece. It's important. It's just not the whole piece, the whole picture. Second is removing the barriers. So you've got people moving forward. Now what can we do to take away those challenges that they're going to face in succeeding in this behavior? So a little graphic just kind of help you see how these two things work together. Those wavy lines represent motivation. So we're moving forward, and then we hit that barrier wall. So one thing we could do is we take away all those barriers so that people's existing level of motivation can make it through to the other side, which is your goal over there. But what works even better is addressing both sides. So you've got an existing level of motivation, you raise that while at the same time bringing down the barrier walls, and that's going to more effectively get you to your goals, hitting both sides. A lot of times programs just focus on one or the other. Let's give people rebates, that takes down some of the cost barriers, and they forget about the motivation. Or let's just motivate, and they don't worry about the barriers, so you just can't quite get there. So going after both sides will get you there more successfully. Third, look look for opportunities to leverage personal contact. There's a lot of that in this room, and there's a lot of that with all of the partners that Liberal San Diego has brought together. The reason for that is, and this isn't like solidly based on exact data, it's just kind of a heuristic to help you see that with information and awareness campaigns, you can reach a lot of people. You get a lot of people with a PSA or a plug on the news or social media. Get your message out to lots of people, but the behavior change associated with that is typically pretty low. But that one-on-one communication, if you talk to someone, it takes a lot longer to reach people. You're not reaching as many people, but you get a higher level of behavior change associated with that. So just think about the last movie that you saw, the last book that you read. Was it because you saw the trailer on TV, or was it something somebody talked to you about, somebody told you about? Doesn't need to be your best friend. We can even achieve this through retail partnerships. You go to buy a pesticide at a local hardware store, and the retail agent talks to you about how to best dispose of that when you're done. Or you're buying a unhealthy food item, and they make suggestions for alternatives that taste just as good. So those types of interactions you can have at the point of sale, at events, are far more powerful in terms of behavior change than broad-based messages delivered through mass media. Lastly, we can draw on tools from the social sciences. So I'm going to spend the last little bit here talking about some of those. Divide them up into two sort of goals. The first are tools aimed at removing barriers. And so those are education, convenience, and prompts. Now I slammed education in the beginning, but remember I said there are times when knowledge is key. It's just not a motivator by itself. So times when we really want to use education is number one, when knowledge is the barrier. If people don't know what to do, then you need to educate them about how to do it. If they don't know how to manage their finances and plan, then having those kind of discussions and trainings will help move them along. If it's a brand new program or a new service, then doing a lot of education and pushing that message out to raise knowledge about that is essential. If there's been a change in an existing program, so say it's a recycling program that now accepts a new material or is open to a new audience or open at different times, a service that now is available more locally, those are times when education campaigns work really well. And also, as I said, these are really great opportunities to leverage partners that already have communications on these particular topics. So second is convenience. By and large, anytime you make something easier for people to do, you enhance the likelihood that they're going to do it. But a lot of times what we focus on is let's just make what we want them to do easier, but we can also be effective by making what we don't want them to do harder. So if we put healthy choices at the front of the lunch line, and you put the less healthy choices where they're behind the cashier, they have to ask for it, you can reduce those impulse buys. And there's tons of studies kind of showing that way that you can change the infrastructure to help people guide people towards different choices. So making the desired behavior easier, but also look for ways to make what you don't want people to do harder. You can also reduce the number of steps. So going back to that example of the riding a bike, how can you take all those steps out? And that's what those bike share programs have really tried to accomplish. Now you don't need to buy a bike to make sure it's in good repair. You just got to wrap them up outside of your employer that you can take to run errands and then return it when you're done. So here's just a few examples: making local food more available to people where they can make healthier food choices, offering things like shop clinics locally where people don't have to go make an appointment with their doctor, but these are available in their communities. We've seen some success in safety programs with life jacket lenders for youth. So you don't have a life jacket, they just give them out. You return them when you're done. So finding ways to make that behavior easier. So third, and this does come from social psychology, is prompts. Prompts are used as a visual or auditory reminder. So it's like the flip off the switch, turn the lights off before you leave, right? It's just there when the barrier, the reason that people aren't doing it is because they forget to do it. Or at the moment they make the decision, they don't know which bin to put something in. Or they're at the doctor already and they forget to ask X, Y, or Z. So the barrier is just that they simply forget Then what you can do is put reminders that are close in space and time to where they would be making that decision. And those reminders need to be positive. So you don't want to say, don't litter, because it doesn't tell people what they should do. So we want to tell people what is it that you want people to do rather than what not. We tell them what not to do, it implies that people are going to make the right choice as the alternative, and they don't always. So tell people what you want them to do and be very self-explanatory on those prompts. And these can be really effective when that is your barrier that people forget. And they can help people form new habits. So it'll work for a little while once people are reminded a few times, and they form new habits and you don't need them anymore. So here's an example of a program that I worked on that wanted people to wash clothes in cold water. And a lot of the new washing machines reset back to warm. So we need to remind people to switch their clothes washing to cold water. Here's a program we did for the County of San Diego, reminding people to pick up after their dogs. This was on large properties, where the large property owners needed to be reminded to pick up in areas that were really highly susceptible to water running off. So they were going to pick it up on all 3 acres, but we could remind them to pick it up right here in this area that's close to a ditch or an area that you could get into a waterway. The Monterey Bay Aquarium has had a great amount of success using prompts, getting people to make sustainable seafood choices by creating wallet cards, and actually this is now an app that is tied to where you are. So if you go to the Pacific Northwest, you can pull up your phone and it tells you that these are sustainable seafood choices that you can make in this region. Same thing if you're eating in San Diego. It will tell you things in green are good, red is bad, but it's at that point in time when people are out and they're ordering seafood. And that was based on research that most of the seafood purchasing was happening when people were out to eat. And then lastly, example from health is some programs have seen success with getting people to do breast self-examinations by placing shower cards in showers. So people are at the gym, for example, and they have the shower cards with the reminders. So rather than just seeing the poster at your doctor's office and you get home, you have the reminder right there at a time that's close in space and time to when that behavior would happen. And you can use those in many ways across many different behaviors. So next I want to talk about ways to enhance motivation. So there's a long list of tools we could talk about here. I picked 2 because they're not only the most powerful, but they can also be used incorrectly in ways that might undermine your efforts. So I want to make sure that we get a chance to talk about those. The first is commitment. Commitment is based on self-perception theory by Daryl Benham, and it basically suggests that when you make a commitment to do something, it alters the way you see yourself. It changes sort of your identity. In addition, consistency is seen as a positive character trait. So we like to be consistent with what we say we do and what we do, or what we do and what we've done in the past, and what we do, or what we say we're going to do that we follow through. So we like that consistency. Because commitments are tied to identity, they have to be used voluntarily. You cannot coerce somebody to pledge or make a commitment to do something. I'll give you this rebate if you commit to do this. It doesn't work because people need to feel like I made this commitment because it's something that I care about, because it's who I am. So they have to be voluntary. For that reason, they work best for an audience that's already motivated. They're already coming to the program, they're motivated, they care, this is part of their identity, and you need to push them a little bit further, then it works well. Commitments are also from a long series of studies that have been done over the last several years. We know that commitments are more powerful if they're written rather than verbal. So if you get somebody to sign a commitment, a pledge card, for example, that's more powerful than if you just get somebody to tell you that they'll do it. Commitments are more powerful if they're made publicly rather than privately. So if you can find ways to take people's pledge cards and post them up where other people can see them, that's going to be more powerful than just one-on-one, hey, tell me to do this. Because thinking back to where it is, people want their actions, their future actions to be aligned with what they said they would do. And now they've made that commitment publicly. A lot of people are going to know if I don't follow through. So we know that those are more powerful. And lastly, if they're durable, if you can find ways to post commitments in a way that they're long-lasting, and I'll show you some examples of ways you can do that. So they're posted up on and at the employer, on the employee board, or on a kiosk as you come into the employer and see those commitments all together, that's going to be more powerful than someone that makes a pledge on Facebook and then that's really quickly at the bottom of the newsfeed. So just think about ways, how can we make those commitments not only written and public, but lasting, so that they're up there for over time to continue to motivate people's behavior. So here's a few examples. This is a study that we did with the Urban Sustainability Directors Network, where municipal employees need to be reminded to turn off their computers and monitors at the end of the day. So this was a small commitment that went on the lower left-hand corner of the monitor, also a prompt, but they signed it. So and they signed their name, pledged to turn both my computer and monitor off at the end of the workday. But now you can think all of those commitments are posted publicly around the office. And you see all these other people that have also made commitments. We'll talk about that next. But an example, this is was at the Oregon Coast Aquarium, where they had children write what they were going to do to spend time outside and sign their names and post that up on a display at the aquarium. So again, public, written, mostly durable. I think probably at the end of the day they took down this display, but at least for the time while children were at the aquarium, they were durable. This is some work we did for Power Recycle that was aimed at getting people to recycle their used oil and filters. So they signed these commitment stickers, which were placed at the store, but also on a funnel that they took home with them, so they were reminded of their commitment. And then here's just an example I found of how we could apply this to other areas like bullying, where kids sign these cards that they will report bullying. A lot of opportunities to use commitments, and like I said, it's one of the most powerful tools that we have, besides this last one I'm going to talk about. So looking at this scenario from Jamba Juice, kind of think to yourself, which one would you throw the tips in? Side on the left, how many would you put on the left? Yeah, logically, right? This poor guy or girl is not getting any tips. I should put tips in. But what we know, if we test this experimentally, and it's been done over and over again, is that you're going to put more money in that one. Remember when I said behavior is predictable? I can predict 100% that most people are going to put their money in that one. And not only are they going to put their money in that one, they're not going to put change in that one because nobody else did. They're going to put dollar bills. Because as much as we like to think that we're in control of our own behavior, we are human beings and we are influenced by what other people do. Even when what other people are doing isn't necessarily the right thing, or if it's not the direction we want people to go. Right? So there's two types of norms. One is a descriptive norm. Descriptive norms are what are other people doing. Other people are putting tips in the jar. That will guide your behavior. There's also what's called an injunctive norm. Injunctive norms are what do other people approve of doing. Most people in our society approve of tipping. Like, we all know that's the right thing to do. So we have an injunctive norm for tipping, but it's not what everybody's doing. So those things, when they're not in line, that's really important. You really need to take a look at, okay, is what people are supposed to do in line with what people are doing? And what we really want to do is make sure we're highlighting the right one. Social norms, because they are so powerful, as we just kind of talked about, because we know they influence us, even if we like to think, oh, I didn't tip because of that, we know. Because they're so influential, we can use them when motivation is low. So this is a really good tool to use for people that maybe aren't already engaged with your project. However, because they are so powerful, it's really important that you highlight the desired behavior. So put your focus on what you want people to do rather than what you don't want people to do. And that's where people a lot of those messages and those marijuana campaigns went wrong. They were focusing on, look what everybody's doing, you should not do this. But we know that doesn't work. So to avoid boomerang effects that ads like this could produce, so here's Tony Hawk, everybody likes Tony Hawk, good choice of spokesperson there. Stop trashing California. Okay, but everybody else is littering, right? So it's conveying that everybody else is doing this and you shouldn't. Or this message which says, I don't know if you can read it, but it says, 70% of teens admit to drinking. Cool, all my friends are doing it, and you want me to not do it? So, and if you look around, you'll find lots and lots of these messages, and they're well-intentioned, because intuitively we think, let's tell everybody how big the problem is so they don't do it, but what we know is that we're driven by what other people are doing. But here's a few examples. This goes back to that cold water washing campaign. Well, cold water washing happens privately in your own home. do you tell people what other people are doing privately? You can't observe somebody and what temperature setting they're using. But you can use data that you collect. You can use testimonials. So here it says, over half of your neighbors say they are already using all or mostly cold water for their laundry. So sometimes people, I should say that perception is reality when it comes to social norms. So if people think everybody's doing it, if people think everybody washes their clothes in hot water, it's dirty if I don't. If people just think that, that's enough. You don't have to actually see it. And there's a lot of evidence and some of you might be more tuned into this than I am, but with teen drinking, there's a lot of misperceptions. They tend to perceive that their friends and peers drink more than they actually do. So sometimes just correcting those misperceptions is enough, and that's what we attempted to do here. We also got testimonials from people that they would recognize in the community saying, hey, I do this, and here's the benefit that I'm getting out of doing it. Here's an example of how you can cluster some commitments together to also create a social norm. So lots of people signing this publicly, written, but clustered together. Everybody's doing this. Everybody thinks this is important. We've done a lot of work for the county of San Diego related to water quality. Well, people are actually still overwatering their lawns, so we can't say, look at all the people in San Diego who are not letting water run off their lawns. Because we don't want to highlight what people are doing that's incorrect. But what we can do is highlight that conjunctive norm, what people perceive as what we should do. So there, we said, a recent survey found that San Diego County residents care about keeping our waterways clean. In fact, 85% of those surveys said they would talk to friends, family, and others about polluting behavior. So we're highlighting that injunctive norm, social approval for taking care of the waterways. This is one you've probably all seen, whether you know it or not, on your water bills or your electric bills, where you see your own usage compared to that of your neighbors. This comes from a study I did with my colleague Wes Schultz, or my mentor, I should say, Wes Schultz, when I was an undergraduate, and it's now been implemented in hundreds of utilities across the U.S. and potentially further than that. But by comparing your own energy use to your neighbor's use, people are saving between 3 and 5% just by just doing this. And what happens is you see that you're using more than your neighbors, and this is what Wes Schultz found in his studies. If you're using more than your neighbors, you will reduce your energy use to come down to that of your neighbors. For people who are using less than their neighbors, they've shown that they will actually increase their energy use around their neighbors. So there's ways around that. If you're using less now, they show compare you to your efficient neighbors, or they give you a smiley face to say you're using less, and that's a good thing. So you're approved for that. But again, it's such a powerful tool. And I just want to give you this example because I think it's a good example of how you can combine your resources and get a couple of these tools at one time. So in that case of the computer shutdown program, we had a prompt which reminded people to turn off their computers, which was also a commitment displayed written and publicly, which aggregated across the office also became a social norm. So really you can think strategically about how you can use these tools for maximum effect. So the last thing I want to talk about then is effective communication. So many of you in this room are professional communicators, and you know all sorts of stuff about best ways to use social media, far more than I do on those topics. But I think it's important for me to talk about this and how it relates to community-based social marketing, because if we develop these great strategies and nobody pays attention to the message because it's not engaging, it's not captivating, it's not graphically pleasing, it doesn't matter what we say after that because they're not paying attention. So we still need to draw on those great marketing tools, those great communication strategies to capture people's attention. And one way you can do that is with your Live Well San Diego brand, because it's something that people immediately recognize very quickly. Social media, there's a time and a place for social media, generating broad awareness, pushing out knowledge, but it's not the right tool for every job. I can't tell you how many times I've walked in with a client and they're like, we want a Facebook page, and I'll be like, well, why? What is it that you're hoping to accomplish, and how does it help you accomplish that goal? Because those pages take a lot of time to manage. You need to manage the comments that are coming in and make sure that people aren't having dialogue, well, I would never do that. And all of a sudden now you have this social norm that's opposite of what you were trying to convey. So it's easy to do, but we need to think strategically about, is it going to get you to your goal, or is it enough to get you to your goal? Make habits to support the awareness building and knowledge raising, but is it enough? The other point I want to make thing about communication is message framing. Sometimes the reason that we do our program is different than the reason your target audience wants to engage with your program. So we might be promoting walking and biking because it's good for the environment, but to your target audience, they don't care about the environment, they're more concerned about their health or meeting others. So think about communicating to your audience in the reasons and the benefits that exist for them, rather than why you do your program. Because sometimes they're the same, but a lot of times they're really different. Sometimes people ride the bus or participate in carpools because they make friends and they need good social supports, not because they're trying to save money on gas. So really think about that, what it is that motivates your audience, not the reason for the program. And then lastly, a lot of times we think if we can change people's attitudes first, that will translate into behavior. But what we're finding now that if we get people engaged in behaviors first, it actually changes their identity and then ultimately their attitudes. It's kind of the reverse. So what we're seeing more and more is that programs that leverage that identity formation, you give people something that they can resonate with, increases the likelihood that you can move them across different behaviors. So I participated in this one Live Well San Diego partnership program that has to do with heart health. I'm not as interested in this one over here that has to do with online safety or financial planning. But I identify with Live Well, so it's easier for me to slide over because that's already part of my identity, and it's easier, I want to do things that are in line with how I do myself, or how I see myself. So if you begin to use that brand across multiple programs, I think someone mentioned that people like it, they trust it, they identify it, if they're willing to come out, then it gives you a lot of opportunities to slide people over from what's working well and people are engaged into things that they're not yet engaged in. So here's just an example of a couple programs that I think have done that really well. Green NYC program is used their overarching brand and mascot to advertise a wide range of sustainability behaviors across the city by linking people into this identity with this birdie and the Green NYC brand. And then more locally, and kind of where I started, was with the Think Blue San Diego brand. There are so many different behaviors related to pollution with residents and businesses. And Think Blue San Diego, I think, is another one that has done a really good job of being an overarching brand under which lots of things could live that people could engage in. We used to send research teams out and say, we're doing research for Think Blue. They'd be like, oh, Think Blue, I don't Think Blue, I'll do a survey. I don't know what it's about, but I know Think Blue. So just really, I'm excited about Live Well San Diego and the opportunities that you guys have to leverage each other, to leverage the brands, to really move people to those behaviors that are going to get you to those indicators and those outcomes that we are all working towards for this safe, healthy, and thriving San Diego. So the very last thing I want to say about community-based social marketing is pilot testing. So even if we do have a great program, it doesn't necessarily run the work. So testing it on a small scale allows you to go back and refine your methods before you roll it out. So really tempting to skip that step, but whenever possible, we're recommending you do that. So I want to thank you for your time. I've included a few resources here if anyone wants to jot down some opportunities for additional learning on this topic. A couple of really good books. The key book on this topic is Fostering Sustainable Behavior. The new edition that comes out of that book sometime next year will include many more articles in health and public safety, so I wanted to follow up on that. And also the website related to that is new, as of last week, includes hundreds of examples of health and public safety. So if you're working in those topic areas, it's not just environment anymore. So thanks again for your time.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jennifer Tabanico. And let's give her one more round of applause.